I've lost count of how many reworks and updates the Dwarfs have had over the years, but in 2025 they're as good as they've ever been. Tons of racial mechanics like the Great Book and the Deeps, and loads of choices of legendary lords, and each of them actually has their own distinct playstyle. They've taken some pretty large steps for such short little legs, so let's go through how to play the Dwarfs in 2025. But first, if you want this and all future videos ad-free, consider becoming a channel member for just $3 a month. You get early access to videos, no ads, and support the channel. Now, let's get into the Dwarfs. Let's start with their racial mechanics, and first up we have Ages of Reckoning. This is an ever-approaching recurring deadline where you have to settle a certain amount of grudges for various stages of rewards. When playing as the Dwarves, every non-dwarf army and settlement has an amount of grudges, and this varies wildly based on the faction or army's behaviour in relation to the Dwarves, such as battling against them or taking settlement. When you beat these targets in combat, that amount of grudges will be added to your settled total. At the end of each Age of Reckoning, also known as 15 turns, you'll receive certain faction effects and rewards based on how many grudges you've settled out of the maximum grudges for that age. This all sounds really complicated, but it pretty much boils down to look out for targets with a large amount of grudges and try to take them out for more rewards. The tiers of effects range from control, growth and upkeep penalties to bonuses for the same three things alongside access to grudge units and even temporary free armies. Grudge units are enhanced versions of existing units that are instantly recruitable, similar to regiments of renown, and can give you a quick boost of power in your armies. This mechanic does kind of force you to constantly expand and be battling, but you do have the option to delay the next age after completing one, at the cost of the next one being more expensive. Next, the Great Book of Grudges. The Great Book is separated into 3 chapters. First is Legendary Grudges. This is pretty much a quest book full of long-term missions to complete over the course of a campaign. Completing these not only gives you a hefty chunk of settled grudges for your current Age of Reckoning, they also each have powerful bonuses for your faction, such as new buildings, abilities, and use of the global underways, allowing instant travel around the mountains of the world. As I said, these are very long-term missions, so give you a lot to work towards over the full course of your campaign. The Legendary Lords tab allows you to confederate all other legendary dwarven lords and their factions once you've settled a truly staggering number of grudges. Again, this is something big to work towards over the course of your campaign and allows you to have extremely powerful army leaders alongside a crazy amount of territory. Lastly, the Grudge Settlers page showcases the 8 kinds of grudge units you can make use of if you wanted a little more information about what sets them apart from the base unit. We also have the Forge and Oathgold. Oathgold is the Dwarves' secondary currency and is earned through a large number of means such as post-battle loot, buildings, mission rewards, and much more. It can then be used on special buildings, research projects, and most importantly, the Forge. From here, you can use Oathgold to craft a large number of items for your lords and heroes, and these range from simple stat bonuses to potentially game-changing abilities. Alongside items, you can also craft runes, which are an item slot unique to the Dwarves, allowing you to fully kit out your characters with a ton of powerful effects. Certain items will require you to have access to specific tradable resources, and these can obviously be gained either through resource building or trade agreements. Lastly, if you have any items you have no use for, you can recycle them for Oathgold, and naturally, the more rare the item, the greater the payout. Next up, High King's Decrees and the Deeps. The Deeps are essentially the dwarf version of Undercities, but they're a little bit more complicated to get going. Before you can even think about building one, you need a High King's Decree. This is a very limited resource that can be gained by upgrading existing Deeps locations through certain research projects and some of Thorgrim's unique skills. Any major settlement can house them, and they cost both gold and Oathgold to reach their full potential, alongside taking a very long time to be built. Once the first tier is completed, you'll gain access to the Deeps building menu, which swaps your selection of buildings. Within the Deeps, you can build a number of powerful branching buildings to gain you all kinds of resources and faction bonuses, from improved income to pausing Ages of Reckoning permanently, provided you can afford the maintenance. If built in Skavenblight, Karak 8 Peaks, or Zarnagrund, the Deeps building type within the Deeps settlement will come with some added effects. These vary from settlement to settlement, but in general, it's counteracting the traditional settlement owner's race whilst pissing them off. So for Skavenblight, it cleanses their corruption faction-wide, but they don't really like you as if that's anything new. All in all, these are hefty investments for your campaign and something you'll likely be working on into the late game than finishing it off early. You'll need a massive amount of Oathgold, regular gold, and time, so keep chipping away at them over the course of a full campaign, and you can stack up some pretty serious bonuses. And lastly, the Dwarves can make use of the underways. This allows them to move underground, making navigating difficult terrain such as mountains much easier. However, this also comes with the risk of being intercepted if you use this too close to enemy armies. If you are intercepted, you'll be forced into a battle, and if you lose, the army will be wiped out. It does carry some risk in this scenario, but most of the time it's just a way to get around difficult terrain much faster. Given that the mountains is difficult terrain and it's where all the dwarves live, it does come in very handy. And of course, we have their commandments. Venerate the Ancestors is great for maintaining control of a province and cleaning up corruption. High King's Tribute is useful for boosting both gold and Oathgold income. Masters of Steel and Stone is great for increasing recruitment speed and bringing down the costs. And Empower the Guilds is useful for speeding along growth, both with actual growth and cheaper construction, alongside boosting trade income. As for some general playstyle tips, the Dwarfs can be exceptionally powerful, but they do take quite a while to get going. Their ability to build resource buildings up to tier 4, which I didn't even mention, allows them to create an insane amount of resources, resulting in an equally insane amount of income from trade, especially if they can buddy up with the rest of the Order Tide. However, their expensive roster means early on you will be struggling for cash before you can get their trade empire off the ground. The constant pressure from Ages of Reckoning does force you to constantly be battling, and even though the game is called Total War, this can be a little much if you want to take some time to develop settlements or recover from a large war. Try to use the option to pause to give yourself a small break to gear up for the next stage, and have plenty of targets in mind for either expansion or simply farming grudges, as you really want to achieve those higher tiers as much as possible. Obviously it depends which lord you're playing as, but I find the dwarves work best when I stick to the mountains. Their more defensive battle playstyle favours mountainous maps and allows them to battle on their own terms, especially against someone without the underway stance to follow them. Add on the fact that most legendary grudges are something to do with either mountains or mountain adjacent lands, and you have plenty of incentive. Speaking of which, use these long-term quests to shape your plans, as the rewards from completing them can quickly snowball you out of control. Make use of the deeps whenever you can, prioritizing on safe locations to ensure you don't lose your investment. Craft the most powerful items you can to catapult your lords and heroes to new levels of power, and abuse your early lead in armor to overcome a huge numbers disadvantage whenever possible. Now we come to the faction choices. First up we have Karaz Akarak, led by Thorgrim Grudgebearer. As High King, Thorgrim maintains close relations with all other dwarves, allowing him to either confederate them under his banner or ally with them to take on the many nearby hostiles. His role grants him the ability to empower his commandments and earn extra High King's decrees to expand his faction into the deeps in no time. He employs as many aged and elite Dowie as he can, increasing the recruit rank of Hammerers, along with reducing theirs and Longbeard's upkeep in his faction. The love for Hammerers continues to his army, where they gain extra resistance and excel at protecting their lord. And lastly, he has quite possibly the most broken, overpowered, crazy effect known to CA developers: a huge 75% bonus to his leadership aura size. It's useless, CA, stop doing it. Thorgrim is the diplomatic expert of the dwarves. Not only can he unite all the holds far easier than the other lords, his central position also allows him to set up trade agreements with a large number of superpowers in the Empire, Southern Realms and beyond. You want to spam Hammerers to make the most of their empowered and encheapened status, and expand into the deeps as fast as you can for all kinds of powerful bonuses. Karak Kadrin is led by Ungrim Ironfist. It's no surprise that the Slayer King makes better and cheap use of Slayers than anyone else, not only recruiting them for cheaper, but building all Slayer related buildings for a reduced cost. And if normal Slayers aren't fast enough, he also increases the speed of them, as well as all other infantry units under his banner. The Slayer focus continues to battle, where he can make use of them for a reduced upkeep, increase their attack, and keep them fighting for longer. The focus is pretty clear for Ungrim. Spam Slayers as much as possible in all of your armies to have a seriously fast and highly damaging horde of shirtless dwarves. I'd advise using Lord skills to push them even further, otherwise they may start to struggle against other high damage. The location is fairly similar to Thorgrim, so is battling up and down the central mountains, taking the fight to the Chaos Dwarves or Vampire counts, depending on your preference. Clan Angrund is led by Belegar Ironhammer. Until his faction captures Karak 8 Peaks, all upkeep in his faction is increased by a massive 50%, causing his early game to be extremely tight on cash. Once under his control, this goes back to normal, and he can then use the extra gold to decorate a new place with powerful unique buildings to grant his faction a large number of infrastructure and military buffs. To aid him in his quest, he starts the campaign with 4 ancestral heroes in the form of 2 Thanes, a master engineer and a runesmith, all of which are immortal and ethereal. Road trip aside, he's a master of the underways and sieges, gaining vanguard deployments and extra leadership respectively. His own army gains even more leadership when battling against the ancestral rivals of the Dowie, and with the already high leadership of the dwarves, that's going to make them pretty much unbreakable. As Belegar, your focus is clear. You want to get control of Karak 8 Peaks as fast as you can so you can start building armies without bankrupting yourself. Your best bet for doing this is making the biggest, most powerful army you can and marching it straight on over to take it down. This is made a little easier by the option to confederate the nearby Carrick-Herne at the start of the campaign, giving you enough resources to just about fill out a stack to send over. Once in control, you can start to work through the legendary Grudges and fortifying your lands, which will be pretty spread out given the lengthy road trip. The Ancestral Throng is led by Grombrindal the White Dwarf. At the start of turn 3 and every 25 turns after, Grombrindal has the choice of 4 buffs for his army and faction. There's damage for his army, replenishment and control, upkeep and construction cost reductions, and battle prowess for Grombrindal himself. Honestly, just pick whichever is best for you at that time and all will be fine. It's just a selection of buffs. Grombrindal is another master of the underways, but where Belegar excels at battling in them, Grombrindal is an expert at using them to avoid conflict. His faction is also on a quest to settle an age-old grudge against the elves, so gains a significant melee damage boost when battling against them. His expertise at getting around extends to his army, allowing them to be reinforced from double the distance, so you're never far from help. All units under the White Dwarf are imbued with an increased confidence in his leadership, and his backlines are much harder to take out. Grombrindal has the most remote start of all the dwarves, starting all the way up in the mountains of Nagarond. You really want to take the fight to the nearby elves to make the most of his extra damage, and try to rely on melee damage to carry your battles. The power of the Ancestor Gods can give you some tasty bonuses every 25 turns, and I'd probably advise abusing the army damage boost to give yourself a powerful early advantage to take as much territory as possible. Also, be sure to use Grombrindal's unique skill line to pick up all kinds of faction-wide bonuses. Ironbrow's expedition is led by Thorek Ironbrow, and he is on a quest to collect a large number of powerful artifacts strewn across the map. Once collected, these can be used to craft powerful items, granting him access to all kinds of faction bonuses, units, and runes. Alongside his unique artifacts, he's also an expert of the usual forge, earning Oathgold faster than anyone else and spending it more efficiently to kit out his lords and heroes. As a powerful rune lord, he also knows how to pick those working for him and grants them bonus XP and reduced upkeep. His runic magic allows him to bring stat bonuses to both defense and damage output across his entire army, making them a terror from the very first turn. Thorek's campaign has some of the most direction of anyone so far. You want to make a beeline for the closest artifacts you can and craft them to collect a range of powerful effects for the faction. Aside from this, I'd also suggest building some Oathgold generating buildings to make as much use of the forge as you possibly can. You will need access to tradable resources to get the real good stuff, so further expansion or trade agreements are a great idea to really open up your options. Lastly, make use of rune lords to lead your armies and give them a head start from the moment they're recruited. And lastly, we have the Masters of Innovation led by Malakai Makaisson. His faction has access to Malakai's adventures, and this is a selection of 7 collections of side quests the faction can embark upon. Each adventure has a specific faction focus that decides who the final battle will be against. Before you can do that, you first have to complete a number of smaller missions such as getting kills with certain unit types, battling certain factions or in certain climates, and more. All of these smaller missions grant you various powerful faction bonuses, normally surrounding the upgraded unit displayed on the right. They do cost a decent chunk of gold to start, but pay out far more in rewards, so are a good investment to keep you busy and keep the rewards coming. These legendary adventures even attract the attention of 2 legendary adventurers in the form of Gotrek and Felix, who join him from turn 1. Lastly, he's also an expert of war machines and artillery, granting them more experience upon recruitment and paying reduced upkeep. Malakai's army can make use of horde building via his airship, the Spirit of Grungi. This allows him to recruit most of the dwarf roster on the move for both his and nearby allied armies. He can also make use of buildings that improve armies in his circle of influence in a large number of ways, such as increased XP, stat boosts, and more. Lastly, his army can make use of the Spirit of Grungi in battle by summoning it after 2 minutes have passed. Lastly, all artillery and war machines in his army gain much improved missile strength, making his barrages nearly impossible to survive. Malakai starts up in Norska and has no shortage of options when it comes to expansion and who to fight. With that said, I'd worry less about what direction you're going and more about what adventures you're embarking on. These give you a ton to do and empower his artillery and war machines to some truly insane levels, especially in his own army. Speaking of which, pour resources into his airship horde as much as possible to make it a roaming powerhouse of recruitment and army support. You can technically go without traditional recruitment from settlements if you really want to, with the only downside being new armies will have to follow him for a few turns until they're all filled up. Still, with powerful war machines, legendary heroes, and his airship, you can't really go wrong when playing as Malakai. But what I want to know is who's your favourite dwarf lord? Let me know in the comments down below. Like if you did, subscribe for more, and if you want more faction guides, then check out this one all about the greenskins.